So I think it's time to talk about the Warzone event, the 2-day event that recently unfolded for Call of Duty Warzone for the Season 3 update for Cold War. And I streamed both events. If you guys were there, you probably saw my reactions to what was going on with everything. Obviously, I was met with a ton of disappointment. Now, I want to say right off the bat, from the get-go, I love Call of Duty. I love Warzone. I actually really do love Season 3 so far with a lot of what they're doing, especially the new map. I think there's a lot of cool things about the map, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I want to start off talking about the event itself and how I don't really feel like it even could be considered an event, at least in my opinion. So I'm going to get past all of the other problems with it because there were a lot of issues with just trying to actually get into the event itself. It took almost an hour on both events to actually get into them. So I was sitting there in a queue for about an hour for both. And even sometimes when I got in there, it crashed, took a little bit longer. Very, very frustrating stuff, but I can't blame the developers for this kind of stuff. I can't, hate on them. They expect this stuff to happen, I'm sure. I'm sure they worked towards it as hard as they possibly could. I just think they probably should have prepared a little bit better beforehand, maybe. But again, I'm not a game developer. I don't really know what these things entail, so it's hard for me to criticize it when I don't really know what it takes to make these sorts of things happen. I just want to keep that in mind. And even if I was to say it's a terrible event and that was all terribly done and all that, I don't think it's fair to, hate on the devs in any way, shape, and form. So I just want to make that clear. I think a lot of people, they're between these two different perspectives. They either are so negative and they just hate the devs and they take their anger out on the devs. And then there's people who don't criticize at all because they're afraid of hurting the developers' feelings. Therefore, they kind of hold back criticism and kind of just say, oh, it was good, it was fine. Me, I'm in the perspective of it's good to criticize, just be respectful about it. As simple as that. Only criticize it if you actually don't like it. If you actually like it all, that's fine. I saw a lot of people who thought this event was fantastic, regardless of all the bugs and issues and the queues, and they loved the entire thing, and that is fine. But it's also okay to criticize here and there. Keep that in mind. So the event started off the first day with you joining this lobby called the Destruction of Verdansk Part 1. And it was essentially infected, large-scale infected on the Warzone map, and if you turn into a zombie after dying, obviously, you become the zombie the rest of the game, and you have to try to take out other people while these people that are still alive can still fight each other. It was literally infected, except, of course, people can fight each other, they're on the same team, and that's it. It was just large-scale infected, and you just keep doing that until the end of the game, and that's when you get the little cutscene where the nuke drops on Verdansk and blows up. Now, I'll admit, the cutscene was pretty cool. I did enjoy the cutscene. I think they have really cool cinematics throughout the entirety of Season 3 thus far, but the event itself, or quote-unquote event, how was that an event? It was more of a game mode than anything. Now, I guess you could consider it an event, I don't know, but to me an event is when something big happens in the lobby itself, when something crazy happens that you wouldn't really expect to happen, kind of like the Fortnite events, where I don't want to compare this too much to Fortnite, because Fortnite's a whole different can of beans, but a can of beans, does anyone ever say that? It's can of worms, right? You don't say can of beans, whatever, that's besides the point. But you have Fortnite events where there would be something massive happening, like the black hole sucking up the map, all while you're still in it. And that's kind of what I was expecting here. I was expecting some sort of event where you're playing in a match and you hear the nukes coming off, and then you see the nuke drop on the map while you're still on the map. And as a player base, you're sitting there watching a large blast of smoke come and just take you out. Kind of like when you're playing multiplayer and somebody drops a nuke and you see the effect of the nuke dropping and blowing up the whole place. They've done that in multiple multiplayer games before for Call of Duty, where you actually see the nuke dropping on the map itself. Not all the time. Sometimes it just kind of happens. But even then, just happening like that would have been a lot cooler than it happening in a cinematic that you don't get to experience in game. I think that's the biggest issue with this event, is the fact that it wasn't even something you could experience. Now, I'm not expecting them to go all out and beyond and make it some crazy thing, which that would have been really cool if it was, like you were there and you were seeing buildings collapsing, like maybe you had to go into downtown for some specific objective and you could see downtown collapsing. Like, that's just way too beyond what I think the developers can probably do for Call of Duty, especially with the limited resources, within time and stuff constraints. I'm sure that's not something they could just put together within a couple months, but would that have been a lot cooler? Yes, but I'm not even asking for that. I'm just asking for something a little bit more cinematic, where you're in the game itself and it feels more immersive, where the nuke is dropping while you're there, as opposed to just getting a cinematic after the fact when you're just playing an infected game mode that's not really a unique game mode in any way, shape, or form, because we played it before. We played as a zombie before in Warzone within the Zombie Royale mode that they did back in October, so it wasn't anything special. Most people that I've seen, and definitely myself, was just kind of bored in the event. We were just kind of jumping around as a zombie. It wasn't that enjoyable. I think they could have done something interesting with that as well, maybe make it a little bit different, have AI zombies instead of having people become zombies. Maybe everyone's working together while hordes and hordes of zombies are coming and you're fighting them off, almost like it's a survival style zombies mode. That could have been a lot cooler as well. There's a number of things they could have done that I think just would have made it more enjoyable as an event, but the way they did it, I honestly did not care that much for it. And then they did the whole Rebirth Easter egg thing, which I wasn't really invested in that, so I can't really speak too much about that. But then on the Day 2 event, they did another Rebirth thing, where it was essentially capture the flag in Rebirth, and you just had to capture flag, and then after it, you had to like keep it for a certain amount of time. When I played that thing, I just kind of sat around and didn't really do anything, and then you saw the nuke going off from the distance at Verdansk, and that was a little bit cooler, I would say, but again, I mean, it's not that crazy. It's not anything like, wow, this is what an event that was. Nothing's really happening on the map. It's just kind of an objective, and then something happens in the outskirts of the map. It's not that interesting. Then we get the map itself, and this is where it gets a little bit more positive, but still a little bit negative in some ways. Of course, we've been hearing about the Ural Mountains map for months, and it's not fake. You know, these leaks are true. A lot of people say, oh, I'm not going to ever believe leaks, and that's fine. You don't have to believe leaks. You don't have to care about leaks. But that doesn't mean they don't exist. You shouldn't deny the fact that they exist. If you don't care about them, that's fine, but don't deny that they exist, especially when they're very reliable and we have actual images of these leaks as well. And of course, I'm not going to show them to you guys, but there was an actual leaked map for Ural Mountains. It could have been for a Blackout 2. It could have been way early in development. I don't know. But it was still there, and it looked really cool, and I was really excited for this, especially because I think the Fireteam maps in Cold War, which is what this map would have been based off of, are way more interesting than what Verdansk has to offer. I don't hate Verdansk, but I don't find it to be as interesting as what they could have done with these Fireteam locations, because the Fireteam locations, A, they're way more colorful, B, they're way more unique. There's a lot of unique buildings in the Fireteam maps, a lot of unique locations. Verdansk kind of feels a bit similar all around in some aspects. A lot of the buildings repeat themselves millions of times on the damn map. Obviously not millions, but a ton of times on the map, and to me that's kind of boring. I kind of want more variety with my map, and Verdansk doesn't really offer that too much, so I'm not a big fan of that. Verdansk also has way too many buildings, and that kind of just makes it a little bit too campy as well. Way too many interiors. I think the Fireteam locations are a little bit more streamlined, and there's also some cool stuff like swimming and snowmobiles and stuff, which we're not going to actually see in this new version of Verdansk. But with that being said, I'm still glad they did this over not doing anything at all, but that's kind of setting the bar really damn low, so I don't know. But the map itself, it is pretty cool. It's very different. Some people just say, oh, it's just a reskin. In a way, yes, but it definitely plays differently. There's definitely a lot of new locations, and even the existing locations that have already been there are very different. So my favorite of the new locations is Summit, which Summit replaced the kind of dam area. This area is really cool, and it's going to be probably a really good spot to drop for a while, assuming the circle lands up there. I had a lot of fun dropping at Summit a couple times. I had a lot of fun dropping at the new Superstore, which has kind of been revamped a little bit. It's not as destroyed as it was before. It's kind of like it's in its prime, where it's not, you know, all run down like it was before. And that's kind of a theme for most of the map, because Verdansk is very run down. There's a lot of rubble sometimes in Verdansk, but in this version of Verdansk, because it's older, it's not as destroyed. There's a lot more like well intact buildings, which to me is more, it's more appealing to the eye. At least I find debris to get kind of boring to look at. You know, it definitely gives it more of a war feel when there's debris, but I just get so sick of debris, and I'm glad that this map doesn't have that much debris, and it does have more color, although it's not that much more color. I saw people saying, oh, Verdansk is finally colorful. It's not that big of a difference. They maybe up the saturation like 2 levels maybe, and it's only because the interiors and some of the buildings have more of an 80s aesthetic to it, which 80s had a lot of color to it, so it kind of gives off some of those, you know, 80s vibes, especially some of like the carpets and the walls and such in a lot of the different houses. I like that a lot. It definitely breathes some more life into the map for sure, but it's not changing the map so significantly to the point where it'll be that different of an experience, which to me is why I'm not that crazy about this. If we got an Earl Mountains map, you know how different that would be and how much crazier it would be to experience, and they really didn't have to remove Verdansk as well. They could have kept the original Verdansk while also adding in a brand new map. A lot of people say, oh, well, the space might be annoying. I'm sure there's a way they can make it so you can choose if you want either map or if you want, only one or the other, or if you want both. I'm sure there's a way they can make that work so you can delete one of them off your space. I don't know exactly how that would work in terms of game development, but I really don't think it would be impossible. So that can give players an opportunity to choose. Do they want both maps, or do they want to save some space and delete Verdansk if they never want to play Verdansk again? I think that could definitely work, and it would have been a lot more fun because we'd have more variety. We would have so much more variety. Would it split the player base a little bit? Yeah, but the player base is already 100 million, so why does it matter? Why does it matter to split the player base if it's so damn big? I understand not wanting to split a small player base, but when it's so huge, give us more options, give us more things to do. And I feel like the fact that we're just getting the same map, but just with some new locations, and yes, again, like I said before, it definitely does feel different. It's not different enough to give me that much of a long-lasting feel, like more than a year. Like if we don't get another map or some sort of reskin of some sort in another year, we're gonna get really sick of this map really quickly, because Verdansk, it was already getting kind of boring at like maybe the 9-month point. This, because it's the same thing, just with, different locations and different, feel, it's probably going to get boring even a little bit quicker, maybe like 6 months or something. I don't know what they're planning with World War II Vanguard. I have no idea. Again, I'm pretty excited to see what they do with the future because I still like Warzone. I find Warzone to be incredibly fun, only with other people. I find solos to be really boring. I did it for this gameplay's sake, but other than that, I don't really play solo Warzone. I find it to be way more enjoyable with friends. But I think it's a pretty solid thing. I don't like how they've been changing up a lot of Call of Duty for the sake of it, like 6v6 and even Zombies has been changing a lot in regards to making it more like Warzone or making it cater more towards Warzone players and such. I don't like that, but it doesn't change the fact that I still do like Warzone a lot, and I'm going to continue to play it as long as it's available. And yeah, I don't know. The event itself was just kind of boring. I find it to be a big missed opportunity. At the same time, I'm assuming if they wanted to do something a little bit crazier, it would have taken them more time to prepare for it. But based on leaks, apparently this has been preparation for over a year. There's been leaks of a nuke dropping on it for ages now, so I don't really get what they were doing. Chances are they were probably planning a million different things, and then things got scrapped, and then eventually they just came up with what they actually ended up doing with this. That's my guess. There's no way this is something they've been working on for more than a year, because if this was something they took a year to do, again, I don't know much about game development, but come on now. There's no way. I've seen other games do crazy things within shorter periods of time, so I don't think that's the case. Again, I love Warzone, I love Call of Duty, I love the developers. This is not hating on them at all. It is just giving some constructive criticism towards the whole event and the whole new map and all that. But in terms of other stuff, like the overall Cold War integration, I do like how they changed the soundtrack to give it more of that Cold War feel. This feels more like a Cold War integration than the integration in December did, because all that did was add in the guns, but it still had the Modern Warfare guns and the Modern Warfare soundtrack. But now you only have the Cold War guns as ground loot. You can only get the Modern Warfare guns through loadouts. So it definitely has way more of a Cold War feel to it, and the music definitely makes it more that way as well. So I'm happy with it. I just think the event itself and the map, not so happy. I'm going to be doing a review for the multiplayer side of things, like the new maps and the battle pass and the guns and such, in a little bit as well. So tune around for that. But that's about all I want to talk about when it comes to Warzone. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.